This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company. For more information and links to all our great podcasts, visit hartmanmedia.com.
Welcome to the AIPIS show for accredited income property investment specialists and those who aspire to be. If you're a real estate, mortgage, or financial professional, this is the place for you. We'll explore innovative investment analysis, sales, marketing, and income-generating strategies for the most historically proven wealth creator, income property. Learn from the experts as they show you how to build a better business and a better life.
It's my pleasure to welcome Ben Mizes. He is co-founder and CEO at Clever Real Estate and principal investor at Arch Buyers. He has an amazing story of how he acquired 26 apartments in 13 months while working another full-time job. He's really grown quickly. Ben, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great, and thank you for having me, Jason. I'm excited to be here.
It's good to have you. The other thing I might mention is that you are the ripe old age of 24, only 24 years old. So congratulations on your success. I got to ask you, Ben, to start with, how did you become interested in real estate?
Yeah, so I was actually working at another company. We were building a platform to help some of the big REITs invest in single-family rentals. And just by seeing what they were buying, the Blackstones, those large groups buying billions and billions of dollars of homes, seeing what they were doing kind of gave me an interest in real estate. And I ended up looking out my back door. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and just doing some research and seeing that there is a huge opportunity of investing in our real estate. And that kind of gave me the spark to start doing the research and believing that I could do it, seeing others do it on such a big scale. It made owning, 10 or 20 buildings doesn't seem like much when you're watching someone who's owning hundreds and hundreds of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've done a lot of business in St. Louis over the years. That market has appreciated quite a bit. City's certainly not without its problems, like most places, but it's been good and our investors have done well there. When you say 26 apartments, what do you mean? Do you mean, is that the number of doors? Is it, little duplexes and fourplexes or bigger apartments? Give us an idea.
So that's the number of doors. We started out, we only focused on duplexes and fourplexes. And then we got into a 12-plex. It's 3 fourplexes all connected that share a yard. And from there, we've really enjoyed the benefits of scale and are now looking at more of the 20-plus unit apartment complexes.
Okay, super. And what was your first deal?
My first deal was called a house hack, if you will. I bought a 4-family home, and I lived in one of the units. And the 3 units were enough to pay for the mortgage and the insurance and the taxes. So I was effectively living for free and getting a taste of what it was like to be a landlord.
Okay, so you bought that property or you managed it for somebody else?
So I bought it and managed it myself.
Okay.
So I was able to kind of experience the whole process from start to finish.
Right, good stuff. Can you tell us about that deal? Specifically, did you use your own money? How much was it? What year was it when you bought it, et cetera?
Yeah, so it was about 2 years ago now. And the market in St. Louis at that time, and it still is, was pretty hot. So it was difficult to find a deal. So I started out every morning. I would wake up, I would check the MLS, just looking for properties, looking on Zillow. And at the time, my criteria was it had to be a 1% deal. So the rent had to equal 1% of the purchase price of the building or more. I ended up finding a building in a pretty good area in Tower Grove, if you're familiar with St. Louis. It was $220,000. The rents were right around $2,600, and it came online. They wouldn't do any showings without a contract. So I put an offer on the building before we actually walked through it. We got really fortunate on our walkthrough and our inspection. We discovered all of the plumbing, the electrical, everything had been redone in the last 7 or 8 years. So I really walked into a great deal, didn't have to put much work into it, and had almost no problems managing the building. So it was a great one to start off on.
Okay, what did you end up paying for that property?
I paid $220,000. We offered list price. There were 4 or 5 other offers on the home.
Right.
And I financed it with my own money. We did an FHA loan, so it was only 3.5% down. And I made the seller do $5,000 in closing costs. And we negotiated for repairs and a new roof during inspections. Mm-hmm. So I actually walked out of the closing. I had to bring $8,000 of my own money, and I got a check for $8,000 that I gave to our roofer and our sewer guy to redo the sewer as well. So it was a really great way to get started.
Yeah, fantastic. Don't you love real estate? I mean,
yes, it's amazing.
Where else can you do that? Where else can you do that? That's great. What was like the second deal and the third deal? You don't have to go into as much detail, but just give us a sense for that, because the first deal is always super important to hear about, because everybody listening is asking, hey, can I do that too, right? But kind of what happened as you were growing? Give us a sense of the next couple of deals.
So I think the second deal was probably the most important deal we've ever done. The first deal, I bought almost a turnkey building. It was more of a proving to myself I could do this, I could be a landlord, I could manage tenants. But the second deal we bought off market. It was a $400,000 four-family unit in a good neighborhood, but the building was in absolutely terrible condition. Some of it hadn't been updated since it was built in 1930. The partner and I that bought the building together, so we purposefully bought this building that needed so much work. And for the first unit, we did everything. We sanded the floors, we did the walls, the painting, we learned electrical, we learned plumbing, and we made so many mistakes along the way, but at the same time, we learned enough that we felt confident then to go out, buy more buildings, hire property managers, and take a more hands-off approach. And I don't think we would have done that if we hadn't done all of the work the first time around.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that was the most important deal because what? Because you learned to do the work?
Yeah, that was the deal where we really went from just kind of buying a deal we saw and seeing what would happen to looking, doing our budgeting, projecting where the building would be after the renovation, learning how to manage contractors. We had some tenants in there who weren't great, learning how to remove tenants, deal with all of the problems, and just really diving in and committing that learning how to invest in real estate was something that we were going to do, and we were going to commit fully to learning it as fast as we could.
Okay, and when you say we, who are you talking about here?
I invest with one partner. His name is Luke Babich, and we own all of the buildings together.
Okay, great. Was that a friend you had before, or how did you find your partner?
It was actually an old friend I've known almost since I was 5. We went to high school together. He went off to Stanford. I went off to Indiana. And when we came back, we were having dinner, and it just kind of came up that I had bought one building and that he was looking at buying another. Mm-hmm. So we kind of realized if we were going to join forces, we could probably get a lot more done.
Right.
Especially if you're doing a lot of the work yourself and learning something new. It's good to have a partner to keep you motivated and keep you focused.
Yeah, no question about it. What do you want people to know about how to invest in real estate, or why to invest in real estate?
So the first question I always ask is kind of, what is your why? What do you want to do with your life? Mm-hmm. And for most people, real estate is kind of a means to get there.
Right.
And if you work hard and you learn these skills, in 5 or 6 years, you can have enough passive income that you can go chase after your why, whether that's volunteering or starting a business and not needing to worry about income. It usually can get you there. Mm-hmm. So it's a great thing I recommend in that sense.
The Simon Sinek, that's a great book, by the way, and a good TED Talk, too, by Simon Sinek. Yeah, that's great.
I'll have to check that out.
Oh, yeah, good stuff. Definitely check it out. You'll like it. I thought that's what you were referring to when you mentioned it, but apparently not. It's great. Really, really good stuff.
The other thing is kind of what to know when you're going in. You should be aware that you're going to make mistakes, but the great thing about real estate is as long as you keep working and you keep committing and make it a goal that you're going to learn and just lean in and move forward and get through it, you usually can. And as long as you've bought the buildings correctly, there's no problem that you can't solve, something that you can't figure out. This is an old industry and there's steps you can follow that work. It's just about learning it and being willing to put into the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good points. Very good points. Where do you see the industry going? And when I say industry, and maybe we'll talk about your sort of day job, your business in a moment, but I'm talking about the investor industry, the small investor real estate that's really maturing. It's becoming an industry. You mentioned before, the big funds that are buying properties. And, we've never really seen that before. These companies in the residential side of the business, they always did office buildings. They always did big apartment complexes. But now they're coming into this small, single family home business. They're coming into the small plex business and doing fourplexes and duplexes and stuff. Do you have any thoughts on kind of the industry as a whole?
Yeah, it's actually something I think about a lot because it's just so fascinating. On one hand, you have, like you said, these professional investors that are spending billions of dollars building systems of how do you evaluate, source, buy, and manage just huge quantities of single families and small multifamily properties. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have companies like that are making it a mission to educate hundreds of thousands of small mom and pop investors who might have never otherwise thought that real estate investing is something they could do. So it's really, really interesting to see kind of both ends of the market are getting more educated, getting more sophisticated, and getting into it. So I do think we're going to see more of a professionalization on both ends, where even now your small-time landlords, they're using online rent tools, they're using tenant screening, professional syndications for their listings. And then on the other end, you have these huge companies building professional management companies that we've just never seen that are turning this into almost the Walmart experience of how streamlined you can run a business. So it's really interesting to see how that's growing and changing our industry.
Yeah, it really is. It seems like the world has discovered income property. Certainly, it's been in industry for many decades, well, really forever. But when Bill Nickerson published his book a long, long time ago, I want to say in the 50s, I think it was, I actually looked back and read that book because it was so famous. And, he talks about buying houses for, you ready? Wait for it. $7,000, in sort of these prime areas too, which is amazing. But so many people have become attracted to it. Are people just disillusioned with Wall Street, or what's behind this, if you care to speculate on that?
I think one thing that people have seen is if you go through enough cycles, I was kind of lived through the 2007 crash and the stock market crash, and just seeing that you just don't have control, that you invest all this money, but at the end of the day, you're just watching the ticker and hoping it goes your way. And the best part about real estate is you can model it going in, and if things go wrong, you can take control, you can do the repairs, you can step up and fix your investment. And having that control is just incredibly appealing in an investment vehicle.
Yeah, it really is. That's my commandment number 3, thou shalt maintain control. And when you don't maintain control of your money, of your investments, you leave yourself susceptible to 3 major problems. Number 1, you might be investing with a crook. Wall Street is no stranger to crooks. Crooks are no stranger to Wall Street, I should say. Number 2, you might be investing with an idiot. And so either way, you'll lose your money by investing with an idiot or a crook. But third, assuming they're honest and competent, they take a huge management fee off the top for managing the deal. And with income property, yeah, you might have a manager, you might self-manage, you can do it either way, of course, but it's pretty easy to sort of maintain control of those costs. They're not very high. When you invest in a mutual fund or directly in a company's stock, you have no idea what they're wasting your money on. It's just mind-boggling, really. That degree of control, I think people really like it. The problem is, though, with control comes some responsibility, and the investor needs to be more involved. So, share, if you would, Ben, any kind of like best practices or lessons you've learned, how to manage your properties better, practices in dealing with tenants, cutting costs on maintenance and repairs, anything like that.
I guess the first point is on the management front. If you're managing it yourself, it's incredibly important that you set really, really clear expectations with your tenants. And we would always when we lease a new unit, we're very clear, this is how you contact us, this is how we handle maintenance, and just setting the expectations so everyone knows you're treating it like a business. And on the other side, if you're interviewing property managers and going that route, which we have actually done for most of our portfolio, we've brought on a management company. It's really important to interview them, ask them, what systems are you using? How do I know if something's going wrong? What are your fees? How do you handle leasing? How are our incentives aligned? Are you getting paid for leasing the units? Are you getting paid for renewing units? What are your maintenance costs? And really getting a full picture. And the other really, really important thing is to always have a backup. So you never want to feel like if your management company leaves, you have no idea where to go. You need to have 1 or 2 companies you've interviewed and vetted ready to go in case something goes wrong. And we've seen that really applies to contractors as well. Anytime we do a renovation and we're working with someone new, we'll get at least 3 to 4 different bids so we can compare them all. And then we make sure we use our contract so we're protected. And it's all about mitigating risk in this industry. It's doing whatever you can to mitigate your risk so you can maintain control in case things go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you have managers for all of your properties now, or are you self-managing any?
So we manage the 1 4-family unit that we still live in, and we've brought on a professional company for the rest, so we have more time to work on our business.
Right, right. And oddly, I just want to throw this out there because I've had many, many discussions and done many podcasts about self-management. If you have a good manager, they're worth their weight in gold. But if you have a mediocre or a bad manager, frankly, there's this sort of a conversation that I want to change, Ben, of people that believe it takes more time to self-manage properties. Sometimes it actually takes less time. It's counterintuitive, but you're not always trading time for money in the management business. Sometimes by putting this third party in the middle of the transaction, it can take more time. Take, for example, healthcare. I mean, just to give you go totally into another industry. In the old days, doctors used to treat patients. Now, since you've got so much insurance in the middle of the transaction, right? The doctors are spending all this time dealing with insurance company billing issues and regulations and things like this, and much less time actually treating patients like they used to. So sometimes an intermediary actually just muddies the whole process. Not always, but I think managers are in a particularly tough position where, on one hand, they're supposed to have a fiduciary obligation to the person that hired them, the owner of the property. But in reality, they're kind of in this situation where they're serving two masters because they want to keep the tenants happy because the tenants, they get angry and they go write bad things on Yelp about the manager, right? And so oddly, I say that if you go and look up a manager and they have a lot of complaints, read through the complaints and find out if they're from tenants or investor owners. Because if they're from tenants, they might actually be a pretty good manager because they're, being somewhat strict with the tenant, and the tenant may not like that. I mean, but they may be doing right by the manager. It can be a real conflict of interest for them, right?
Yeah, and I definitely kind of echo what you said. A bad manager can definitely take more time than just doing it yourself. I've spoken with other investors who had their units not get rented out for 3 or 6 months, and they get in and the unit has been trashed, and suddenly they're scrambling to renovate and lease it themselves. And if they've just taken the time to do it right the first time, they would have saved so much of their time, effort, and money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other best practices you want to share? Management, getting repairs and maintenance done inexpensively and economically. And also, I'm guessing, but I didn't ask you this, so maybe you can address this. Are your properties C-class properties? I know there's a lot of that in St. Louis. That's the, 4-family type C-class properties. What level property and tenant do you have in your portfolio?
So we currently have C through A in our portfolio. I live in an A-class building that we bought, and we were only able to get in that neighborhood because it was the one we bought that was in absolutely terrible condition. So she was having trouble selling it. We own a couple B-class properties that we're actually trying to sell. And then we have mostly C working class kind of blue collar properties. And that's our bread and butter. We love finding kind of bad landlords that aren't doing a great job taking care of their buildings, so we can buy it at a good price and have enough budget to repair these buildings so they'll last for the long term. And that's actually one big thing to stress. If you don't do a good job with your repairs, it's incredibly hard to manage a building with leaking plumbing and bad electrical, and if everything is going wrong. So we've learned you never want to cheap out on your repairs. You don't have to hire the most expensive company, but if you hire the absolute lowest bidder that you find on Craigslist, you really run a risk of getting shoddy work that's going to break or it won't be done right. And if you do that, you'll cause yourself headaches, and you'll be calling the maintenance man every couple months because it'll keep breaking. And that's one of the most expensive ways to waste your time in the industry.
Yeah, no question about it. It's also a way to have really angry tenants. So both of those are bad things. And then you increase your turnover, and turnover is expensive. So we don't want to do that. There's an old saying, you get what you pay for, right? I find that saying to be terribly untrue and inaccurate. Sometimes it's true and sometimes it's just not. So, you got to use judgment and all of this stuff. You don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish or, step on dollars while picking up pennies. Boy, I'm full of old trite cliches, aren't I? But, it's true. Just get good values and see if you can get in with some good contractors that take care of business, some good service people that take care of business and do right by you and do quality work at good prices. That's definitely the sort of sweet spot, if you will. In terms of the broader real estate industry or best practices, really, technology, are you using any apps that you like a lot in your business or software, websites that are really helpful to you in managing your properties or things like that?
So we have two main ones that we use. The first one we use is a company called Cozy. They do online rent collection and background checks.
Well, they've been on the show before, yeah. So are you doing
awesome.
Cozy for both of those things, both elements, background checks and collections?
For the units we self-manage, we use them for everything that they offer, and it's been truly great. They're totally free for us, and we just don't have to worry about it.
Right. Okay, good. And are you finding that, I don't know if you're using Cozy for any of the C-class properties, but are you finding that with the C-class tenants, this has been one element I've heard from our investors, that a lot of them won't do Cozy, they don't set up, the online transfer element, and, they just can't do it. They're like living paycheck to paycheck and they want to just drop off the money every month type of thing. Are you finding that to be an obstacle at all?
So our property manager has a pretty interesting solution that might be worth adopting by others. What they do, they run on AppFolio, so they accept payment online. I think it's credit card, ACH, debit card.
Yep.
And they don't accept cash, but they do let you go to stores that have a Western Union, and you can send money directly that way. So if you want to pay with cash, I know 7-Eleven in St. Louis has it. So some tenants will go to 7-Eleven and send cash that way. And it's really a lot safer. You don't want either someone coming to pick up cash from tenants or everyone knowing where cash is getting dropped off. It just creates a lot of unnecessary risk when there's other ways to do it while still allowing cash payments.
Yeah, good stuff. That's a good hack. So using the Western Union system as well. You were going to mention something, I think, besides Cozy?
Besides Cozy, one of the biggest things that helps us, we've built a property report in Excel that we can enter everything in, the projected rents, our repair budgets, the maintenance costs, everything about the building. And it'll actually show you the cap rate, your monthly cash flow. You can play with what financing you want to get if we want to bring on an investor for the building. And it makes it really, really easy to model out a deal and kind of see, before you spend too much time on it, is this something worth pursuing? And if it is, then learning more and doing more due diligence.
Right. And hey, I got one to recommend to you, Property Tracker at realestatetools.com. That's a company I bought with one of our clients about 3 years ago. I loved the product so much. It was developed by one of our clients that, you got to standardize your data regardless of what format you use. I like that one, but maybe it's just because I'm used to it. But data standardization is key. So having the report look the same each time, critically important, isn't it?
Agreed.
Yeah, good stuff. Ben, let's wrap it up. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for all the valuable insights. I'm sure our listeners like that. Give out your website, if you would, and tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so where you can find me, we're actually running a nationwide discount brokerage that lets anyone list their home for either a flat fee of $3,000 or 1% if it's more expensive. And you can find that at listwithclever.com. And I'm also very active on Medium. It's a blogging website. I write about personal finance and financial freedom. That's medium.com at Ben Mizes.
Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. I really appreciate you having me on and taking the time.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.